Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today, we're doing things a little differently.
Hmm.
You wanted to make life a little more, well, interesting, right?
Right.
So we thought we'd switch gears and take a deep dive into a single source,
Oh, cool.
a powerful speech by Oprah Winfrey,
Oh,
to see if we can unearth some wisdom that might help us out with that.
sounds good.
So, Oprah structures her talk around mastering 4 key areas: your mouth, your mind, your mood, and your money.
Mm.
And it's kind of fascinating how she connects to these seemingly separate aspects of life, suggesting that by understanding and controlling them, we can unlock a more fulfilling and, yes, exciting existence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really interesting way to approach it because it really highlights how interconnected all these different aspects of ourselves are.
Totally. And she kicks things off as something we all use every day, our mouths.
Right.
And honestly, I was blown away by how much emphasis she puts on the power of words.
Yeah, me too. She really drives home the point that words have a tangible impact. They can heal, build, inspire, but they can also really hurt.
Yeah.
And what she really stresses is becoming intentional with our speech, making sure our words are genuine reflections of ourselves and our values.
It's almost like taking that old saying, think before you speak, to a whole new level.
Exactly. It's not just about thinking, but about being really mindful of the impact our words can have.
So, what are some practical ways we can become more intentional with our speech?
Well, Oprah offers this really simple but powerful practice. She encourages us to pause before we say anything and ask ourselves 3 key questions.
Okay, I like this.
1, is it necessary? 2, is it kind? And 3, is it true? Just taking that moment to check in with ourselves before we speak can prevent a lot of hurt.
Both for ourselves and the people around us.
Exactly. It's about creating a space for compassion and understanding in our communication.
I love that. And this idea of mindful speaking also applies to how we talk to ourselves.
No, absolutely. That's a huge part of it.
Because we're often way harsher on ourselves than we would ever be to anyone else.
Yeah, it's like we have this inner critic that's constantly putting us down and judging us.
Totally. And I'm curious how Oprah connects this self-talk to our outer speech.
Well, she makes this beautiful connection between cultivating self-compassion and respect as the foundation for loving and authentic communication with the world around us.
So basically, if we're constantly beating ourselves up on the inside, it's going to be tough to have healthy, positive communication with others.
It makes sense, right? Because how we treat ourselves is often reflected in how we treat others.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And along with speaking with intention, Oprah also stresses the power of listening, right?
Yes. That's a huge one. She talks about listening being an equally crucial communication skill.
Really?
Yeah, it's not just about waiting for our turn to speak, but about really being present and engaged in what the other person is saying.
You mean like actually paying attention and trying to understand their perspective?
Exactly. It's about showing respect and fostering deeper connections.
Almost like active listening is a secret superpower.
I love that analogy because it really does take effort and skill to be a good listener.
For sure.
Ugh.
So, we've talked about speaking mindfully and listening attentively, but sometimes isn't silence the most powerful response?
Absolutely. Oprah talks about this too, particularly in those heated moments or situations where there's a lot of tension.
Right.
Choosing not to react immediately can be so powerful.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when I just blurt things out, I end up saying things I regret.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. And how does Oprah suggest we, actually apply this mastering your mouth concept in our everyday lives?
She boils it down to 3 key elements: awareness, intentionality, and practice.
Okay, break those down for me.
So awareness is about becoming more conscious of the words we're using, like paying attention to our language patterns.
Right.
And then intentionality is about considering the impact of our words, like choosing to speak with kindness, truth, and purpose.
Mm-hmm. And what about practice?
Well, practice is about putting those first 2 elements into action. It's about catching ourselves when we slip up, because we all do,
Oh, yeah.
and then learning from those missteps. It's an ongoing journey, not a destination.
So it's not about reaching some unattainable level of perfect speech, but about constantly striving to communicate in a way that aligns with our values and who we want to be.
Exactly. It's about progress, not perfection.
I love that.
Mhm.
And, it makes me think about how this whole idea of mastering our mouths can set the stage for mastering other areas of our lives as well.
Totally. Like our minds, for instance.
Oh, right. That's Oprah's next area of focus, taming your mind. And she uses this brilliant analogy to illustrate this concept.
What's that?
She compares our minds to gardens.
Ooh, Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, it really highlights the idea that we are like gardeners of our own
Oh,
minds.
right.
And just like we carefully choose which seeds we plant in a garden, we have the power to choose which thoughts we allow to take root in our minds.
And just like with gardens, we have to be vigilant about those pesky weeds.
The weeds. You mean those negative thoughts that seem to pop up out of nowhere?
Exactly. And if we're not careful, those negative thoughts can choke the life out of the beautiful, positive thoughts we're trying to cultivate.
So we have to pull them out, like weed them out of our mental gardens.
Precisely. And this is where the idea of thought recognition comes in. OPRAH emphasizes that we need to develop the ability to recognize the power of our thoughts.
Because they're not just random things floating around in our heads, right?
Right. They have a real impact on our actions, relationships, and the direction our lives take.
She's saying that just because a thought appears in our mind, it doesn't automatically make it true.
Exactly. Especially those negative ones that seem to stick around like unwanted house guests.
Ugh, I know those all too well. So how do we deal with them?
Well, OPRAH introduces a technique called reframing. It's about challenging those automatic negative responses and choosing to see things from a more empowering perspective.
So like instead of saying, I'll never be able to do this, we might say, what can I learn from this challenge?
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from limitations to possibilities, from problems to solutions.
And this reframing technique kind of ties into the whole mindfulness thing, doesn't it?
It does. Mindfulness is all about cultivating an awareness of our thoughts and feelings without judgment.
So it's not about trying to like stop our thoughts altogether.
Right, because that's pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
It's more about creating a space between ourselves and our thoughts so we're not so swept away by them.
That's interesting. So instead of being like controlled by our thoughts, we become the observer of them.
Precisely. And from that place of observation, we can choose which thoughts to nurture and which ones to let go of.
Kind of like a gardener tending to their plants.
Exactly. And speaking of nurturing positive thoughts, OPRAH offers another powerful tool, affirmations.
Affirmations. Those always sound a little, I don't know, cheesy to me.
I know what you mean, but they can be incredibly powerful if you use them correctly.
So how do they work?
Affirmations are basically positive statements that you repeat to yourself either silently or out loud.
Okay.
And the idea is that by consistently repeating these affirmations, you can reprogram your subconscious mind.
So like if I keep telling myself I am confident and capable,
Mm-hmm.
eventually my mind will start to believe it.
Exactly. It's like planting seeds of positive beliefs in your mental garden.
Interesting. And what about those limiting beliefs we were talking about earlier? How do we deal with those?
OPRAH encourages us to challenge those beliefs head on.
But what if they're true?
That's the thing. A lot of times, they're not actually based on truth, but on stories we've been telling ourselves for years.
You mean like those I'm not good enough or I'll never be successful stories?
Exactly. Often, when we shine a light on those beliefs and really examine them, they crumble under the weight of their own illogic.
So we have to ask ourselves, is this belief really true? Or is it just a story I've been telling myself?
Right. And that can be a really empowering realization because it means we have the power to change the story.
To rewrite the narrative of our lives.
Exactly. And finally, OPRAH emphasizes the importance of gratitude.
Gratitude. It seems like that's always the answer, isn't it?
It's pretty powerful stuff.
But seriously, why is it so crucial for, taming our minds?
Because when we focus on what we're grateful for, we shift our attention away from negativity and lack and toward abundance and appreciation.
So it's like a mental reset button.
Exactly. It reminds us of all the good things in our lives, even when things are tough.
I like that. So to recap, taming our minds involves becoming aware of our thoughts, reframing the negative ones, practicing mindfulness, using affirmations, challenging limiting beliefs, and cultivating gratitude.
You got it. It's like a toolkit for creating a more peaceful and empowering mental landscape.
And, it makes me wonder how these mental practices might influence our moods as well. But we'll have to dive into that after a quick break.
Sounds good.
Stay with us. All right, and we're back. It really is kind of amazing how just thinking about gratitude and practicing mindfulness can shift your whole mental state.
It really is.
Makes you wonder how those practices could affect our moods too, right?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, that's a perfect segue into Oprah's next area of mastery, managing your mood.
Okay.
She really dives deep into this whole idea of emotional intelligence, recognizing that our moods can be these incredibly powerful forces
Right.
that can shift so quickly
Oh, yeah.
and just color our entire perception of the world.
Sometimes it feels like our moods are these invisible currents that can sweep us away if we're not careful.
That's such a great way to put it. And, the important thing that OPRAH emphasizes is that we're not like at the mercy of our emotions. We don't have to be passive passengers on this emotional roller coaster.
So we don't just have to sit there and let our moods dictate how we feel and act.
Exactly. We can actually learn to manage them
Oh, wow.
through self-awareness and a deeper understanding of our emotional landscape.
So it's not about denying or suppressing our emotions.
Right. Because that never really works.
No, it doesn't.
It's more about becoming more attuned to what we're feeling and why.
So kind of like checking in with ourselves throughout the day.
Exactly. OPRAH talks about the importance of doing that regularly. Just becoming aware of what emotions are present.
Without judgment.
Yes, without judgment.
So it's like taking our emotional temperature.
I love that.
Okay, so let's say I'm feeling anxious. What would be the next step?
Well, then you might ask yourself, okay, what might be contributing to this feeling? Is it a deadline at work, a social event that's coming up, or something else entirely?
Right. So trying to pinpoint the root cause of the anxiety.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that OPRAH points out that sometimes those seemingly negative emotions like anxiety, fear, or sadness can actually be valuable signals.
Really?
They can alert us to situations or patterns in our lives that might need our attention or need to change.
So instead of trying to push those emotions away, we can view them as messengers.
Exactly. They're trying to tell us something.
So once we've identified what we're feeling, what's the next step?
That's where OPRAH introduces this concept of emotional regulation.
Okay, what's that?
It's basically about having a toolkit of strategies that can help us shift our emotional state when we need to.
Almost like a first aid kit for our emotions.
Exactly.
I like that. So what kind of tools are in this emotional first aid kit?
Well, OPRAH specifically mentions deep breathing exercises as one of the most effective tools for emotional regulation.
Deep breathing, huh?
Yeah, she explains that taking slow, deep breaths can actually activate your body's relaxation response.
Oh, wow.
Which calms down your nervous system and eases feelings of anxiety or stress.
So it's like hitting the pause button on all that emotional chaos.
Precisely. You're giving yourself a moment to just reset and regain your composure.
It's amazing how something so simple can have such a powerful effect.
It really is. And then, in those moments when we are really struggling, when our emotions feel super intense or overwhelming, OPRAH stresses the importance of self-compassion.
Self-compassion. So treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, like we would a close friend.
Exactly.
That seems so important, but I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with.
It's true. We're often way harder on ourselves than we would ever be on anyone else.
Totally. So how do we cultivate more self-compassion, especially when we're feeling down?
Well, OPRAH reminds us that it's okay to feel what we're feeling. Our emotions, even the messy ones, don't make us weak or flawed.
Right.
They make us human. And when we can approach those emotions with self-compassion, we create space for healing and growth.
So it's like saying to ourselves, hey, you're going through a tough time, and that's okay. You're not alone. You're doing the best you can.
Exactly. It's about offering ourselves that same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend in need.
And what about gratitude? Does that play a role in mood management too?
It does. It seems like gratitude is the key to everything, doesn't it?
It really does. But how does it apply to managing our moods?
Well, when we're in a negative mood, it's so easy to get stuck in this downward spiral of negativity.
Oh, yeah.
We just focus on everything that's wrong.
Right.
But gratitude helps to break that cycle. It shifts our focus to what's good, even when things feel really challenging.
So it's like a mental reset button again.
Exactly. It reminds us of all the blessings in our lives, big and small.
Even when things are tough.
Even when things are tough. And practicing gratitude doesn't have to be this big, elaborate thing.
Right.
It can be as simple as noticing the warmth of the sun on your skin.
Or appreciating a good cup of coffee.
Exactly. Or the kindness of a stranger. Those small moments of appreciation can really make a difference.
They can, for sure. Now, OPRAH also talks about the importance of setting boundaries as a way to protect our emotional well-being.
Yes. Boundaries are so important, especially in today's world.
Right, where we're constantly bombarded with information and demands on our time.
Exactly. Setting boundaries is a way of protecting our energy and making sure we're not constantly giving ourselves away to things that don't serve us.
So it's about saying no to things that drain us and yes to things that nourish us.
Precisely. Whether it's limiting time with certain people, declining commitments that overwhelm us.
Or just prioritizing rest and self-care.
Yes, it's all about taking care of ourselves.
And finally, Oprah reminds us that managing our mood is an ongoing practice.
Right. It's not about achieving some perfect state of emotional bliss.
Because that's not realistic.
Exactly. It's more about learning to navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life with grace and resilience.
So it's not about avoiding negative emotions altogether.
No, because that's impossible.
Right.
It's more about developing the skills to ride those waves without getting completely swept under.
So learning to surf the emotional ocean?
I love that analogy.
Me too. Okay, so to recap managing our mood, it's about awareness, acceptance, emotional regulation, self-compassion, gratitude, boundaries, and engaging in activities that bring us joy.
You got it.
That's quite the toolkit for emotional well-being.
It-
And it makes me realize that we have so much more control over our moods than we often think.
We really do. It's empowering, isn't it?
It is. And now it makes me want to hear what Oprah has to say about mastering our money. But before we dive into that, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of our amazing listeners.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here.
You know, we wouldn't be here without your support, and we truly appreciate each and every one of you.
We do.
And if you're enjoying this deep dive into Oprah's wisdom, we'd love for you to spread the love. Tell a friend, leave a review, or share it on social media.
The more people we can reach with these empowering ideas, the better.
All right, now let's get into that final area of mastery that we haven't talked about yet, mastering your money.
This is a good one.
Oprah has some seriously insightful perspectives on this topic, which, let's be honest, can be a source of stress and anxiety for a lot of people.
It's true.
So I'm really curious to hear what she has to say about shifting our mindset around finances.
Me too. Let's dive in.
Okay, so mastering your money. This is a big one, right?
It is, yeah. It's a topic that can bring up so many different emotions for people.
I know, everything from, like, excitement to straight-up anxiety.
It's true. But I think Oprah approaches it in a really clear and empowering way. You know, she starts by kind of reframing our whole perspective on money, suggesting that it's not inherently good or bad. It's just a tool.
The tool. Interesting. So like a hammer. It can build a house or it can,
Exactly. It depends entirely on how we use it.
Okay, I see that. So then where does this whole abundance mindset thing come in? I keep hearing about that.
Well, that's a big part of Oprah's philosophy around money. It's this belief that there's enough for everyone, that we don't have to live in this constant state of scarcity and competition.
So instead of thinking if someone else gets rich, that means there's less for me,
Yeah.
it's more like, hey, there's enough abundance to go around for everyone.
Precisely. And when we can shift to that mindset, it opens up so many possibilities. We start seeing opportunities where we once saw limitations.
Yeah, it's like that whole energy attracts like energy kind of thing.
And Oprah really believes that when we adopt that abundance mindset, we start to attract more wealth and prosperity into our lives.
But it's not just about thinking positive thoughts, right? Like there are actual practical things we can do to master our money.
Absolutely. And Oprah talks about how it's not just about how much you earn, but about how you manage what you have. It's about being intentional with your finances, making conscious choices that align with your values and goals.
So not just like mindlessly swiping your credit card.
Exactly. It's about being mindful of where your money is going.
And I guess that starts with tracking your spending habits, right? Like actually figuring out where all your money is going each month.
That's a big one. Because if we don't know where our money is going, how can we make a plan to manage it effectively?
And then there's that dreaded B word, budgeting.
I know. But Oprah makes a really good point about budgets. She says they're not about restricting ourselves or depriving ourselves of the things we enjoy.
So it's not about being a total Scrooge.
No. It's about empowering us to make conscious choices about how we use our money, like deciding what's truly important to us and then allocating our resources accordingly.
Okay, that makes sense. So budgeting can actually give us more freedom, not less.
Exactly. Because when we have a plan, we feel more in control of our finances, and that can reduce a lot of stress and anxiety.
And Oprah is also a huge advocate for saving and investing, right?
Oh, absolutely. She believes that even small, consistent contributions can add up over time and create a foundation for future financial security.
Yeah, it's like that slow and steady wins the race kind of thing.
Right. And she's a big believer in the pay yourself first philosophy, like saving a non-negotiable part of your budget, even if it's just a small amount each month.
And she doesn't shy away from talking about debt either, does she?
No, she doesn't. And she acknowledges that debt can be a useful tool in certain situations, like investing in a home or education.
Right, like good debt versus bad debt.
Exactly. But she cautions against accumulating high-interest consumer debt, which can quickly spiral out of control.
Yeah, credit cards can be dangerous if you're not careful.
And her advice is to create a plan to pay down debt systematically, whatever strategy works best for you. The key is to be proactive and intentional about reducing your debt burden.
So you're saying it's better to face it head on rather than just ignore it and hope it goes away?
Absolutely. And she also talks about this important distinction between assets and liabilities, which I think is crucial for building long-term wealth.
Hmm. So remind me, what's the difference again? It's been a while since my econ class.
So assets are things that put money in your pocket, like investments, rental properties, or a business that generates income. Liabilities, on the other hand, take money out of your pocket, like credit card debt, car loans, or things that lose value over time.
Okay, got it. So the goal is to accumulate more assets and minimize those pesky liabilities.
Exactly. Oprah emphasizes that building true wealth is about creating a portfolio of income-generating assets, not just accumulating a bunch of stuff that loses value over time.
It's about building a financial foundation that can support us for the long haul.
And then she brings in this really interesting principle, generosity.
Generosity. That seems kind of counterintuitive when we're talking about building wealth.
I know, right?
Mm.
But Oprah believes that giving generously can actually attract more abundance into our lives.
So it's not just about hoarding all our money for ourselves, it's about sharing it with others.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that money is a tool for creating value in the world, not just for our own personal gain. And when we give freely, it can create a positive ripple effect that comes back to us in unexpected ways.
It's like that whole what goes around comes around kind of thing.
And lastly, Oprah stresses the importance of financial literacy. Actually educating ourselves about how money works, how investments grow, and how to manage our finances effectively.
So not just relying on our parents or our partners to handle all the money stuff.
Right. It's about taking ownership of our financial well-being and feeling confident in making decisions that support our goals.
Wow, she really covers it all, doesn't she? It's like she's given us a complete roadmap for mastering our money.
She has. And I think the key takeaway is that it all starts with our mindset. If we believe we're destined to struggle financially, that belief will often become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, it's like those limiting beliefs can really hold us back in any area of our lives, including our finances.
But if we believe that we are capable of mastering our money, that we are deserving of financial abundance, then we'll be more likely to take the actions necessary to make it happen.
It's about shifting our perspective and believing in our own power to create the financial reality we desire.
Exactly. And, that really ties back to everything else Oprah has talked about. Mastering our mouths, taming our minds, managing our moods, it's all interconnected.
It is. It's like a holistic approach to living a more vibrant and fulfilling life. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Oprah's wisdom, we encourage all of our deep divers out there to take a moment and reflect on what resonated with you today. What one small change could you make in one of these areas, your mouth, your mind, your mood, or your money, to create more excitement, more meaning, more joy in your life?
Remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Start small. Choose one area that feels most compelling to you and take one tiny step today. That one step could be the catalyst for a ripple effect that transforms your entire life.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the wisdom of Oprah Winfrey. We hope you found it insightful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit life-changing. And remember, keep diving deep.